The boy stumbled out of the trees just as dawn broke over the Carpathian hills. His feet were bare, his shirt torn, and his eyes, those were no longer his. They glistened in the pale light, milky and distant, like glass marbles clouded by fog. He walked in a slow, rhythmic pattern, head tilting side to side, as if following a melody only he could hear. It was Matej, the baker's youngest son. Gone for 3 nights, his mother's cries had turned the air in the village brittle. Now, she stood at the edge of the forest path, lips trembling as she beheld what remained of her child. He collapsed in front of her. The old men carried him to the chapel. The doctor was summoned, then the priest. But there was nothing to diagnose and nothing to absolve. Matej just stared at the ceiling with empty eyes, humming a low, almost tuneful whistle. Sometimes his lips moved, but no words came out. Just the breathy echo of a song older than speech, they say he whistled back. The forest had been calling, softly, sadly, for years. A wind that didn't quite sound like wind, a tune that didn't quite fade. The elders warned, don't respond. No matter how sweet it sounds, no matter how curious you are, don't answer the forest. But curiosity is a crueler hunger than any wolf. When the boy spoke again, days later, it was not with his voice. He said only one thing. It misses you, all of you. Then he smiled. His mouth was wrong when it curved, and deep in the woods, something whistled back. The village of Vireshti clung to the base of the hills like an afterthought, houses of timber and stone, dark roofs bent by time and snow. Mist wove through the narrow roads in lazy threads, and crows sat in silence along the wires like black punctuation marks. Elena folded the letter again and tucked it into the inside pocket of her coat. The paper had been worn soft from rereading. The handwriting was jagged and abrupt, as though written in a hurry or fear. If you really want to hear it, come. The forest sings at night, but don't let it know your voice. Ashy stepped out of the minibus and onto gravel, a small pack slung over her shoulder and a recorder clipped to her belt. It was colder here than in the city, the kind of cold that got in through your sleeves and stayed in your bones. The driver didn't wait for her to speak. He glanced at the woods, made a sign of the cross and drove off. She booked a room in the only guest house in the village, run by a stiff-backed woman named Ruxandra, who seemed to speak only in warnings. "You're not the first to come here, with microphones and theories," she said, while pouring dark tea. "But the forest doesn't like attention. It listens back." Elena smiled politely. She had heard variations of this before. Local folklore often had a way of dressing natural phenomena in robes of fear. But this legend was different. Every account she'd read, going back over 2 centuries, spoke of the whistling. It wasn't just the sound, it was the fact that those who responded seemed changed. A pattern of disappearances, a slow history of strange returns. A collective silence from those who lived closest to the trees. She pulled out a small notebook and jotted, "No one speaks above a whisper near the forest's edge." Why? Conditioning or caution? That night, she walked to the edge of the village and sat on a moss-covered bench beside the old road. Beyond that, the whistling forest. It lived up to its name. As the sun dipped behind the hills, a thin breeze slipped through the trees, carrying a tone that was both melodic and formless. Not quite music, not quite random. She raised her recorder and pressed a button. A red light blinked. The whistling began again, louder, closer. Elena didn't whistle back. Not yet. The next day, she explored the perimeter of the forest. The air was unnaturally still within 10 feet of the tree line. No birdsong, no rustling. Even her own footsteps seemed muffled in the soil. She noticed something else, carved symbols in the bark of certain trees, simple circles, spirals, lines that formed shapes like eyes and mouths. A small voice interrupted her thoughts. "You shouldn't be that close." She turned to see a teenager standing nearby, thin, pale, dark curls over wary eyes. He wore a threadbare jacket and kept his hands in his pockets. "I'm not in the forest yet," Elena said. "The forest isn't a line on a map. It begins where you forget you're afraid of it." He looked at her recorder. "You're one of them. The ones who want to prove it's not real." "I want to understand it," she said. "I don't think stories survive this long without a reason." He hesitated, then walked a little closer. "My name's Dorin. My sister. She went in 2 years ago. She didn't come back." Elena's voice softened. "I'm sorry." She whistled, he said simply. "Just once. I heard it. Then the forest called back. It was beautiful. It was the last beautiful thing I remember." Later, in the chapel, she met Father Ion. He was in his 70s, tall and solemn with eyes like shuttered windows. "You're too close to grief," he said. "That's why you hear it? That's why it calls to you?" Elena blinked. "What do you mean?" "The forest doesn't just whistle. It mourns for what it lost, for who it was, for what it made others give up. It remembers sorrow, and if you answer it, it remembers you. You believe that? I've buried enough hollow-eyed corpses to consider it. That night, she played back her recording, alone in her room, headphones on, static, wind. Then, there it was, a note, rising and falling, delicate as a lullaby, wrong as a scream. It wasn't like anything she'd ever heard in her fieldwork. It wasn't animal or mechanical. She froze it, played the tone backward. The pitch reversed, yet the pattern remained. It was symmetrical, recursive, not just a call, a mirror. Elena stood at the tree line the following morning, watching the mist curl around the branches like smoke from a dying fire. She clipped her recorder to her belt, tightened her coat, and stepped forward. The forest swallowed sound. No birds, no bugs, no wind. Each footfall on the moss-draped ground was unnaturally quiet, as if the forest itself were absorbing noise. The canopy above seemed denser than it should have been, and though she followed the old deer trail Father Ion had mentioned, the trees soon crowded close like sentinels. She took photographs of the symbols she'd seen before, some carved, others burned faintly into bark. Most depicted mouths or spirals, but one, near an ancient oak, was clearly a human figure. Eyes hollow, mouth wide open, whistling. "Join the song." The phrase had been scribbled in the corner of one of the old journals in the church archive. The ink looked smeared, as if written in haste, or by someone whose hands no longer understood. Writing. She returned to the village at dusk. Roxandra was waiting on the porch, arms folded. "You went inside," the woman said. "Not a question. I stayed on the trail." "You were still hurt." That night, Elena listened again to the forest's whistle, layered with her field notes and acoustic mapping software. She'd expected noise bands and harmonics. Instead, the waveforms revealed something odd. Each segment was slightly different, as though it were adapting, mimicking, learning. That evening, while transcribing notes, she found herself humming it. Just a few notes. She stopped, hand trembling. The next day, Doran waited by the chapel steps. "I had a dream," he said. "She was singing." Elena glanced around. "Your sister?" He nodded. "I used to think she died, but now I think she's there. Not like a ghost, just part of it, like she dissolved into the music." His lips pressed tight. "I hear her sometimes, just before I fall asleep." Elena didn't speak. She didn't have an answer for him. "I want to go in," Doran said. "I think if I follow the melody, I'll find her." "No." Her voice cracked. "You'll lose yourself." "Maybe. That's the only way to find her." In the chapel archives, she discovered a bundle of letters written by villagers during the 1800s. One line stuck out from a letter dated 1871. "My brother returned from the trees, but he was not my brother. He looked like him, walked like him, but there was a silence behind his eyes, as if someone else had picked up his skin like a coat and didn't know how to wear it." There were records of at least 11 such returns in 2 centuries. Survivors never lived longer than a few months. Most stopped eating. Some walked into the woods again. A few simply stopped breathing, their lungs empty as flutes, the hollowed, the priest had called them. 3 nights later, Doran didn't come to the chapel, nor to the house. Elena found his room empty, the bed undisturbed. He was gone. She raced to the forest's edge. Cold air met her in a single breath, sharp, metallic, as if the forest exhaled in anticipation. She waited. Then she heard it, a single, perfect whistle, sad, delicate, and then another. She lifted the recorder. Her hands trembled. She knew what it meant. He had whistled back. Back at the guest house, Elena played the most recent audio. It was faint but clear. Doran's voice. A whistle, uncertain but sincere. Then the reply. The tone of the forest that followed was different than before. Fuller, as though it recognized the voice now, as though it had stored it and could now call it back at will. She analyzed the waveform. The sound structure mirrored Doran's pattern. Almost exactly. The forest had learned him. She stared at the blinking red light on her recorder. If she whistled back, would it learn her too? That night, she dreamt of her sister again. It was the same dream she'd had for years, ever since the crash. Only this time, her sister was standing among the trees, barefoot, pale, hair drifting around her, shoulders like underwater silk. Her mouth moved, but there was no sound, just a rising note in the wind, matching the tone of the forest. When Elena reached for her, the trees shifted, their trunks splitting open into black mouths, all whistling the same hollow song. She woke gasping, heart hammering, and in the silence of her room, someone whistled, softly, from just outside the window. She leapt up, threw open the shutters. Nothing, only the forest, still as death. And then, just once, she heard her name. Not spoken. Whistled. The next morning, she visited Father. "Ion, I need to go in," she said. The priest's jaw tightened. "Then it's already in you." He placed something in her hand. A small wooden pendant, carved with a spiral. "Take this. It won't protect you, but it will remind you what's real." "Is that a blessing?" "No," he said. "It's a weight. Something the forest can't hum away." She left just after dusk. As she crossed the boundary where grass met root and mist, she felt her ears pop as though pressure had shifted around her. The forest seemed deeper this time, wider, older. A sound danced on the edge of perception, constant, subtle, like a breath held in the trees. After 20 minutes of walking, she heard footsteps. Not hers. She stopped. They continued. "Dorin?" she called softly. Silence, then a whistle, familiar, his. She answered with a single, sharp note. A mimic. The forest stopped moving, then answered. Not Dorin, but it used his melody. She pressed record. Elena wandered deeper into the forest than she intended. The path, if there ever was one, dissolved behind her. The trees rearranged themselves, subtly but unmistakably. Pine, spruce, and ash stood shoulder to shoulder like mourners at a wake. Light filtered down in thin green shards, twisting with each step she took. Her recorder picked up faint frequencies, harmonics that resonated just below the threshold of hearing. She felt them more than heard them, like distant thunder beneath the skin. Then the air changed. A clearing opened suddenly, unnaturally, a perfect circle. Dorin stood in the center. His back was turned, body rigid, head tilted to the sky. "Dorin!" she called, stepping forward. He turned. His eyes were wide, ringed in black. His face wore the same slack serenity Mate had. His lips moved, but the sound that came out wasn't his voice. It was a whistle, delicate and alien, threaded with something inhuman, a harmony like weeping glass. Elena took a step back. "It's so loud in here," he said quietly. "But it doesn't hurt. It's like floating. Dorin, you have to come back. This isn't you." He smiled. "Why do you think we sing lullabies to children? We want them to forget the world before sleep. This is just another lullaby." "You're hollowing," she said. "You're letting it in." His smile wavered. "No, I'm becoming part of it. You don't understand. Out there, I was alone. Here, I can hear them." His head turned sharply, eyes locking. "On her, and they can hear you, Elena." She stepped forward cautiously. "You can fight it. Just come with me. They showed me your sister." She stopped. "She whistles too. She's waiting." Eleanor's voice cracked. "Don't lie." Dorin's gaze flickered. For a moment, something human returned. "Even if it's a lie, would it matter? It's beautiful." Then he turned and walked into the trees. She didn't follow. Back in the village, the people knew. They didn't say a word as she passed. But doors closed. Windows shuttered. Even Ruxandra didn't open the guest house that night. Elena slept in the chapel. Father Ion waited for her by the altar. "You saw it," he said. "I saw him, but I don't know if that was still Dorin." "He's not gone," the priest said. "But he's not entirely human anymore, not if the song is in him." Elena pulled out the pendant. "What is this, really?" He traced the spiral with one finger. "A symbol of resistance. The spiral goes inward, yes, but if you follow it long enough, it turns outward again. Can it help me? It can remind you who you are when everything else tries to rewrite you." Elena isolated one particular recording, the response. The forest gave her whistle. When she slowed the pitch and layered it over her sister's voice from an old voicemail, her chest constricted. The cadence matched. The forest hadn't just mimicked Dorin. It had begun to mimic her. That night, she set up camp just outside the tree line. She left her recorder running, but didn't sleep. At midnight, the whistling began again. This time, the forest didn't wait for her to respond. It played a series of notes, 3 high, 1 low, a pattern. Elena knew that tune. Her sister used to whistle it when they were children. A made-up song, something no one else could possibly know. Her breath caught, her hands trembled as she turned up the gain on the mic. The forest was inside her memory. She dreamed again, this time vividly. Her sister stood in a hall of trees that arched like cathedral vaults. Light filtered down, gold and sacred. Elena walked forward. "Arms out, you came," her sister whispered. Elena reached for her. Their hands met, and then the face changed. It melted like wax, eyes hollowing, mouth stretching into a black spiral that inhaled sound. The body slumped inward, becoming a root, a vine, a piece of the forest. Elena screamed, but the sound didn't reach her own ears. She woke sobbing. She made her choice the next morning. She would go back in, alone, not to find Dorin, not to save anyone, but to face it, to hear the full song, to understand it, if only to silence it. She packed light, flashlight, notebook, recorder, pendant. She left a letter in the chapel. "If I don't return, burn the recording. It remembers me." Inside, the forest welcomed her. It was dusk, the sky above barely visible. She walked past familiar trees, past symbols she now recognized not as warnings, but as invitations. She followed the whistle. It echoed around her like voices in a choir. High and low, male and female. Old and young, the sound guided her, down a slope of tangled roots, through a wall of damp fog until she found the well of echoes. A pit, stone-lined, old as the earth, in the middle of the forest's heart. From its mouth came the melody, the source, a stream of harmonic wind that rose and fell like a living breath. She stared into it and saw faces, her sister, Dorin, Matei, others, dozens, hundreds, not alive, not dead, trapped in song, carved into the forest's memory, and it wanted her to join them. She raised the recorder, pressed the red button. The melody shifted instantly, became frantic. A rush of notes it knew. It feared being recorded. That was its vulnerability. Elena dropped to her knees, focused the mic down the well, and captured every note, every ghost. She began to whistle herself. The melody, the answer. And then something broke. A wind howled up from the pit, roaring through the trees. The forest screamed in whistle form, off-key, furious. She felt her mind pull at the seams. 1,000 voices rose inside her head, names, regrets, memories not her own. The spiral in her palm burned cold. She clutched the pendant and screamed back, not in sound but in thought. "You don't own me." Then silence, total and absolute. Jabig. Wind died. The music stopped. The forest went still. She awoke at dawn, lying just outside the clearing. The well was gone. Covered in vines, her recorder blinked, battery low. She played it back. The whistle was still there, but subdued, contained. The melody had ended. Elena emerged from the forest. The villagers watched her in silence. Father Ion approached, took the recorder from her hands. "I'll destroy it," he said. "No," Elena replied. "Let it sleep, but don't let it be forgotten." He nodded. That night, Elena packed to leave. She sat on the porch, sipping tea. From the trees, a soft wind blew. Carried no tune for now. Elena returned to the city with silence in her lungs. 3 weeks had passed since she left Vireshti. She had replayed the recordings only once since then, on the train ride home. The melody was there, perfectly preserved, too perfect. It felt wrong to own it, like holding someone else's grief in your pocket. She had not published it. Not yet. Instead, she left it in a box under her bed, labeled, sealed, and untouched, but the forest had not left her. Her dreams were quieter now, but they still bore traces of the forest. Tree branches curled like fingers, soft wind where there should be none, glimpses of Doran standing behind doorways that weren't real. The melody hummed beneath street sounds, beneath voices, beneath silence itself. She didn't whistle, not once. She sat in her university office, staring at the blinking cursor in the Word document titled Sonic Hauntings, the Case of Vireshti and the Whistling Phenomenon. She had written 10,000 words and deleted them all. Facts felt like lies. Analysis felt like betrayal. She had gone into the forest a scientist. She had left it something else. One evening, she met her former professor for coffee, a stern woman named Dr. Elena Moreau, respected in the field of acoustic anthropology. "I heard you went up into the mountains," Elena said. "The locals say you walked out of a cursed forest with a god trapped in your recorder." Elena managed a small smile. "They said something similar about Stravinsky." Elena leaned forward. "Did you find it?" "I found something." Elena's eyes flickered. "Are you going to publish?" "If I do, people will go looking, and the forest will learn them too." "So you believe it's sentient?" "I believe it's remembering." Elena paused. "May I hear it?" Elena didn't answer. Later that night, Elena returned to her apartment. The city air was heavy with spring, the kind that makes you want to walk without reason. She walked. Her steps took her through a nearby park where trees rustled gently. The wind curled around her ear in a soft breath, no tune. She kept walking. At a bus stop, she noticed a man sitting alone. Young, pale, a familiar stillness in his posture. She slowed. He turned. It was Doran. Or it looked like him. His eyes were soft now, human. "Elena," he said. She froze. "Doran?" He nodded slowly. "I got out." "That's not possible. You brought me back. When you recorded the forest, when you captured the song, it lost its hold." She stepped closer, heart thudding. "Others?" He shook his head. "Not yet. Most are still part of it, but now it's weaker." She reached out, touched his arm. Warm, solid, real. Tears welled. "I thought you were gone." "I was," he whispered. "But you whistled back, and it heard you." They sat on the bench until sunrise. Weeks passed, then months. Elena moved away from the city, bought a house on a hill. No forests nearby, just rolling grass and quiet evenings. She didn't take the recorder with her. She didn't need to. The song was no longer inside her. Not fully. But some nights, just before sleep, she heard the wind shift. Not a whistle, just a breath, as if the forest was waiting. Somewhere in a basement archive beneath the university, a graduate assistant catalogued field recordings submitted by a former student. He was tired. The hours were late. He logged the last entry. Audio file WF final WAV contents. Field recording of sonic anomaly, mountainous region. Status archived. He clicked play. The whistle began, slow, subtle, beautiful. He smiled. Unconsciously, he began to whistle along. The forest miles away stirred.